Now's the time for our sermon. We have with us today our contracted minister, Reverend Diane Diachishin. Her first professional life was teaching music for 30 plus years in both private and public school systems. Can't read my own little writing because it's in pencil. She's been an active member here at the UUCRT for 25 years. Diane is passionate about her family, playing music, hiking, and traveling. She's gone to many places. Ask her about it.
Okay, I hope both of these microphones are okay. Okay. Oops, not now. Okay. I don't know. Why don't you fix it?
It's
It was
okay.
exactly
Yeah,
in
it's all good.
stereo.
Try now.
Good, check. Can everybody hear? Okay, great. Well, it's wonderful to see such a wonderful crowd here this morning. It's a nice reprieve from the hot weather. I know I'm happy about that. And I wanted to say this sermon was really inspired by Quaker Friends newsletter that came out in November of 2024, as well as one of my favorite interviewers, Krista Tippett. She has a website called On Being. And when Joan Baez's latest poetry book came out in 2024 as well, she sat down and interviewed her. Is the sound still on? Joan Baez always says is in her concerts, so I hear, action is always the best antidote to despair. And this quote has been kind of echoing in my own mind lately as I watch the news. There's definitely a heaviness that accompanies our awareness these days, and the knowledge that all the forces of division and authoritarianism and injustice continue gaining ground in many dangerous ways. And many of us do find ourselves asking, well, what difference can I possibly make in the face of such overwhelming and daunting challenges? And does what one person, what they do they really, really matter? Well, I do believe that the answer is yes. Each of us matters, and what we do matters, especially in times that test our democratic values and our faith in humanity's capacity for goodness. And so I beg everyone in this congregation, more than ever, please don't give in to despair. So this morning, I'm going to look at my American folk hero, Joan Baez, who's been an inspiration to me, as well as so many millions of other people. And I must admit, I was really feeling my age when I started doing the research and finding out really all about her career. She is known as the voice of a generation, the queen of folk, a legend, an icon, the one who sang "We Shall Overcome" alongside Martin Luther King Jr. in 1963 on that march in Washington. And as much as anyone, Joan Baez embodied the spirit of that decade of soaring dreams and songs and dramas set in motion that echo through the world of ours today. And I wanted to start out a little bit with her background, which I found out when I did the research as well. She had a mother who was born in Scotland and a father who was born in Mexico and a paternal grandfather who left the Catholic Church and he became a Methodist minister, and another grandfather who was an Episcopalian minister, and her own family converted to Quakerism. And you're wondering, what was it like growing up being a Quaker as a child? Well, in her own words, as Joan Baez said, we hated those Quaker meetings. There was nothing to do. You sit around looking at each other, waiting for some Quaker to get up and talk. And really, that's what she said was for us kids, you know. And if you've ever been to a Quaker meeting, I agree. I think as a child, it's challenging, to say the least. But what she says is what stayed with her was the silence. And she said it's been a really important part of her own life ever since the long meditations. And she said, it's where I love to be, which is just in the woods by myself, talking to the trees, talking to the creek, just meditative and quietness. And that has been a big part of my life. And she goes on to say, I have to thank my parents, whom we really hated at the time, because we really didn't want to be dragged off to the meetings. And finally, they relented and said, you can stay for 20 minutes. And they did, and they were very happy about that. The term Quaker originated in the mid-17th century, and believe it or not, it's about quaking or shaking. And so the story goes, it referred to the religious fervor that was seen by many of the people that attended the meetings. People might think that's a little bit strange, and I say in our own congregation, we don't quake. We might shake our heads at people that we don't agree with, or shake our fingers at different people that we have opposing views to, but we don't quake. And it was often attributed to a derisive label given by a judge to the founder by the name of George Fox during a court hearing in 1650. And his followers believed in that inner light and a direct experience of the mystery of the unknown, and really to their passion in their worship practices. And it was used to make fun of the Quakers originally, but then it emerged as a broader movement, emphasizing simplicity and equality and some pacifism for some of the members, and known for its commitment to social justice and many humanitarian efforts. And then Krista Tippett asked, what about your voice? Did you ever know and perceive it as a gift? And Joan Baez said, yes, as a gift for sure. But I always knew that second with that gift was the desire to use it in ways that I've used to heal people. And then she talks a bit about growing up, which was not always so happy. And she talks about poetry as her saving grace. Joan Baez says in this article that from up until the age 15, she suffered horrible anxiety and really bad depression. And finally, her parents found her a therapist, And he used guided imagery and also the use of poetry so she could write what was going on inside her head. And she talks about the different voices that came out in her head when she was writing her poetry. And it turns out that those voices were the voices of her father, and that she had been abused as a child, as well as her sister had been abused as a child. And thanks to the help of an amazing therapist, she was really able to sort of begin coming to terms with what had happened to her. She talks about her father as being a horrible person, as well as an influence on her. He was a UNESCO researcher, and they traveled all over the world. And she says, and they would go to really poverty-stricken places like Baghdad, for example, and he would say to Joan and her sister, "These people are worthy of respect and dignity, and they're worthy of our help and empathy." Kind of sounds like our own values as well. As Joan Baez emerged as a folk queen in the early 60s, she followed her conscience by marching for civil rights and committing herself to nonviolence in opposition to any war. And her public stance against racism and the Vietnam War were very risky in her career, as well as her personal safety. And in her own words, she received many, many death threats for years. They called her a communist. They called her a socialist. They called her a stupid hippie. And she may have been a hippie during the 60s and the 70s, which she acknowledges, but she never really considered herself a communist or really even a traditional socialist. In fact, she said, "I'm really, really difficult to label. A role on my left really didn't conform to any usual category, but yet she had a lasting impact promoting left-of-center issues of social justice." So Joan Baez's identity as a Quaker sums her up best, a term she embraced instead of espousing her political affiliations. And what many may not realize is that behind her iconic melodies and years of performing lies a deep-rooted spiritual foundation in the form of her Quaker faith. Her faith infused her music with a sense of moral purpose and spiritual depth. A little bit more about Quakerism from the Friends newsletter. Through her soul-stirring ballads and protest songs, Joan Baez not only serenaded audiences, but also awakened social consciousness. Her Quaker faith imbued her music with a strong sense of purpose, elevating it from mere entertainment to a powerful tool for inspiring change and challenging injustice. Songs like "We Shall Overcome" and "Carry It On" became anthems of hope and resilience during the civil rights movement, galvanizing individuals to stand up against oppression. A little bit more what she said. The other thing that I got from my early Quaker meetings was all the discussions about nonviolence. Violence, really, from the time I was 8 years old, I heard discussions about what was really important in our world, the life of people, not power, not land. And what are we really fighting for? And that human beings should be the most important things to fight for. Joan Baez talks about the first time she heard Martin Luther King Jr. speak, and she said she cried, and she couldn't stop crying. And yet later on, they became fast of friends, and she helped him with many of his demonstrations throughout the years. A little bit more about her beliefs. She never really clearly defined her pacifism, but she did advocate for nonviolence. And she talks about the different kinds of pacifism: absolute, conditional, pragmatic, where absolute pacifists say no violence is ever justified, that violence is always wrong. Conditional pacifism says it depends. And under the term conditional, there are many, many different subcategories, nuanced arguments about how or why it depends. A pragmatic pacifist will argue for nonviolence because the use of violence will make the situation worse. It's not that all violence is always wrong. It's that violence in certain situations will just not be effective. So Baez's Quaker values of deep, abiding compassion for those in need fueled her declining to play in any white student venues that were segregated, which meant that when she toured the southern states, she would only play at Black colleges. So with her blend of spirituality and social consciousness, she was with Cesar Chavez during the United Farm Workers Union demonstrations. She traveled and performed in Vietnam and Northern Ireland and Bosnia at the height of the conflicts in those areas. Her actions always spoke louder than her words, echoing her Quaker beliefs in the transformative power of peaceful activism. A few more about her actions. In 1965, she founded with the anti-war activist Ira Sandpearl the Institute for the Study of Nonviolence in California, which is a school that teaches nonviolent protest. And that would later branch into becoming the Resource Center for Nonviolence, which is still in existence today. The mission of that institute is to create, by words and example, a community that uses the principles and practices of nonviolence to prevent, interrupt, and heal violence, and to uplift a community. In their own words, in their beloved community, in our beloved community, everyone can thrive. There is an abundance of love and enough resources for everyone. Community members share the power. The value of every person is recognized and engaged, and conflict is handled productively whenever possible. And then in 2016, Joan Baez worked with the Innocence Project. The Innocence Project works to free the innocent and prevent wrongful convictions and create fair and compassionate and equitable systems of justice for everyone. And their work is guided and grounded in science and anti-racism. They use DNA and other scientific advancements to prove innocence. And they said, we are committed to helping each person we represent rebuild after their life when they're released. She also worked on the issues of global warming and climate change. Well, her legacy of light to me is just so inspiring. It serves as the testament to the profound impact that one individual, guided by her faith and conviction, can have on the world. Her unwavering dedication to causes greater than herself serves as a guiding light for aspiring musicians and change makers and activists, reaffirming the enduring power of music and art as a catalyst for positive change. And last words from Krista Tippett: in unraveling the tapestry of Joan Baez's life and career, one cannot ignore the profound resonance of her Quaker faith. It was the silent conductor guiding her melodies, the invisible force propelling her activism, and the unwavering anchor amidst turbulent times. So the next time you listen to Joan Baez's soulful melodies, or maybe read about her tireless activism, keep in mind that profound influence of her own faith that resonates through every note and every word. And remember her words: actions are the antidote to despair, and each of us matters no matter what little bit we do. So we don't have to quake. We don't have to shake. We can sing, and we can ring our bell of freedom and march and organize and open our mouths and do whatever we need to do to live our faith in action and promote our own faith and belief in humanity's capacity for goodness. Thank you for your kind attention.